Maybe there's a reason why this guy is getting shot at. Maybe there's a reason why people are trying to set his house on fire. Look, here's the deal. If a man lies about small things, about meetings, about safety, about structure, and who said what, why would you trust him when he starts talking about the future of humanity? Why are we letting a man with this record narrate the future of AI? Why is this guy at the microphone when technology touches war, surveillance, work, and the basic structure of public life? Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Sam Altman. And he may be on his way to being one of the biggest POSs in tech, and that's saying a lot. So where am I getting this from? Well, the New Yorker did a massive article on Sam Altman, and the picture isn't pretty. What it lays out is that this guy shifts anything and everything about him depending on who he's talking to, what the moment requires, and how much money is involved. So if you look at that as a pattern of behavior, it's not just a personality issue, it's an issue of public danger. And it's especially an issue of public danger considering the product that he's pushing forward. He's pushing forward AI, and the specific version of AI and vision of AI that he has for the future is one where AI is embedded into every aspect of society, up to and including the military industrial complex and specifically the mass surveillance state. That's a problem. We're talking about a massive credibility issue with this guy. And when we think about credibility, that's a central problem that's addressed in this article. And it's not even subtle. It's not hidden between the lines. It's right there for everybody to see. Now, some of these names I'm going to mispronounce. So it all starts with Ilya Sutskever. He was one of the key figures inside of OpenAI, and he helped complete the internal material for the board that, according to the New Yorker, alleged misrepresentations, deceptions around safety protocols, and a pattern serious enough that one memo reportedly began with a list whose first item was lying. And this matters for a reason that's beyond anything related to office politics. This matters because OpenAI was sold to the public as a company that understood that this technology could be dangerous. They told the world that this was a civilization-altering technology, and they told the world that the stakes were so high that unusual governance was required, that safety had to come before profit, that integrity at the top was non-negotiable. Now, compare and contrast what they stated with how Sam Altman behaved. When internal memos are being passed out that list off all the lies that this guy told the board to maintain power, that's a massive problem. What you're looking at is an entire pitch for this product to get funding, for the technology to get advanced, based on a credibility play. Meanwhile, the main guy in the organization is lying at a level that would make Trump almost blush. That's saying a lot. This is just another instance of another tech bro doing tech bro things. It's the same dude, different hoodie. We've seen it before. We've seen the Zuckerbergs, the Bezoses, the Sam Bankman-Frieds, the Elizabeth Holmes, all of these people that have made careers and millions of dollars. And some of them have thankfully ended up in jail, but not before they've bilked customers and investors and everyday people out of millions of dollars. The more you look at what Sam Altman did in his rise to power at OpenAI, the more it becomes clear that he's more aligned with Sam Bankman-Fried or Billy McFarland of the Fire Festival than any sort of altruistic do-gooder that you've heard about. In fact, the list of mediocre white billionaires who have pitched a product that's closer to vaporware than an actual product and ended up in jail is pretty long. The people that I just mentioned were just a few, and there should be a much longer list if there was any sort of real justice in society, but that's not the world that we work in today. The world that we work in today and the world that we live in today is one where billionaires like Altman can lie, cheat, and steal their way to the top, and then look down at everybody else and say, well, you don't need that, you didn't want that, I'm going to do my own thing, and who cares what happens, I got mine, so screw you. And what I'm describing is what makes the New Yorker piece so damning. It doesn't hinge on a cartoonishly evil moment. This isn't the guy in the back room twirling his mustache. What makes this damning is that all of the things that the article articulates about Altman is death by 10,000 paper cuts. This is a guy who's been constantly doing this. It's a pattern. Repeated contradictions, repeated manipulation, repeated situations where the truth is used as a prop rather than actual principle. That's how these people work. That's how this entire billionaire class and millionaire class works. It's all about lie, cheat, and steal their way to the top, and then push out the narrative that they pulled themselves up by the bootstraps and were self-made men. These guys are all frauds, liars, thieves, and crooks. These are all people who climb to where they are by telling one person one thing, another person something else, and by the time the contradictions get exposed, they gaslight it into making you think that you're the crazy person. This is their business model. And when you dig into that entire article, it's a laundry list of things that this guy has fudged, and that's to put it lightly. He's misrepresented facts to executives and board members. He's deceived people about the internal safety protocols. He had created enough of a problem that his own board tanked him and removed him for being a liar. Let's stop right there and think about this. His board removed him for lying. And it would be one thing if he was a founder that was exaggerating user growth about a line of protein bars. It would be one thing if we were talking about an inflated pitch deck for a dog walking app. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is what's being called life-changing technology that's embedded in every major application that we can think of. And we're talking about an application of a technology that we don't fully understand, and the person pushing forward anyways is a known liar that got removed by his board. That's insane. The implications of this technology is going to reshape labor markets, weapon systems, policing, surveillance, public knowledge, and democracy itself. The person pushing it forward lies like a politician. And we're sitting here as the public being told that the technology is so powerful it could alter the fate of civilization, and yet we're expected not to hold their leaders accountable for the truth. That's a weird flex. This should have been something that ended his career. But what happened? Just like every other mediocre white guy, he can fail over and over again and fail upwards and accumulate more power. So what happened when the board booted him? Well, the entire infrastructure behind propping this liar up closed ranks. Investors panicked. They threatened to pull funds. The entire investor class decided to play hardball. And instead of backing the board, which fired a guy for cause, they held everybody for ransom and said, if you don't take this guy back and put him back in charge, we're not going to fund you. And what that meant was that every rank and file employee who was there from day one stood to lose a fortune if the deal didn't go through. That's how the billionaire class works. They protect their own, and they hold every rank and file person hostage in order to do it. And what that reveals is a truth about this country. What it reveals is that if you can make enough people rich, and if you can get enough people pot committed to your Ponzi scheme, whatever character flaw that you have gets rebranded as genius. You're not contradictory, you're complex. You're not manipulative, you're a keen strategist. You're not evasive, you're a guy with vision. And it would be one thing if this article was talking about all of this coming from one person. But there's a laundry list of people around Altman who are coming to the same conclusion, that this is a guy who is incapable of telling the truth. He tells people what they want to hear, and this pattern doesn't belong anywhere in an ecosystem that's responsible for building safe AI. That's the whole story. And yet, here we are looking at this company about to go IPO and become a $1 trillion company, and we have somebody at the top who lies about process, that can't be trusted on safety. He plays games with governance and tells you a story that you want to hear, while really everything around him can be burning and falling down, and he'll just be sitting there telling you everything's fine, we've got it under control. Now, it would be one thing if all of this was happening in the context of some small startup, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a company that is an offshoot of one of the largest tech companies in the world. And on top of that, this company has government contracts all over the place. And those government contracts help shape how AI is going to be used. And it's being used for immigration enforcement, domestic surveillance, autonomous weaponry in war zones. They're not using it in a sandbox. They're not using it as a beta test on an Excel spreadsheet. It's not a sandbox environment. It is something that is embedded into state power and is being leveraged and utilized domestically and internationally. And keep in mind, this company, OpenAI, headed by one of the biggest liars in tech apparently, raced to agree with the whiskey-drinking, leaky moron in charge of the Department of Defense to hand over controls so that their AI could be embedded in military weapon systems that can autonomously kill people. So you have a liar in charge who can't be trusted when it comes to what the technology can and can't do, handing over something that's untested and volatile and unreliable to a drunk idiot in the Department of Defense who wants to push a button and kill people. Or not even push a button. He wants the machine to be able to decide who gets killed. That should terrify everybody. And yet, here we are, walking around as if everything's normal and there's nothing to see here. The central issue that we have to deal with in this situation when it comes to Sam Altman and OpenAI is, can the technology be trusted when the guy at the top is incapable of telling the truth? That answer is no. It's absolutely not. Because what happens is that once these systems get embedded into contracts, intelligence, defense, policing, border enforcement, drug interdiction, the game is over. We're living in a dystopian hellscape where everything is watched and you're going to get offed by an algorithm. I'm not joking around when I say that Sam Altman is no different than Sam Bankman-Fried, Trevor Milton, Billy McFarland, and any number of other mediocre white snake oil salesmen that got rich by selling you a story and then robbing you blind in the process. He's cut from the same cloth and they're about to go IPO. But this is what's common in Silicon Valley because everything's about vision. And if you slap an AI label on anything, you can get billions of dollars in funding, regardless of how real your actual product is. So yeah, OpenAI is more structurally sound than some vaporware concept that's being pitched out there to investors. But how much of it is real and how much of it is likely to run off the rails and end up killing a bunch of people? And if you have to struggle to answer that question, that tells you that there's a problem. So here's why it matters, and here's why you should care. Because this is going to impact every average citizen that is living in this country. Because anybody who's not a billionaire, anybody who's not a millionaire is going to feel the impact of it, either directly or indirectly. You're going to feel it directly as it gets embedded into law enforcement and surveillance systems. You're going to feel it indirectly by all of the funding and resources that get plunked into those data centers that allow these things to run. And what this means for everybody is that each of us is going to be paying through the nose to fund somebody else's pipe dream. This technology is not proven, it's not reliable, and it costs a huge amount of resources. And the only people that it benefits is the billionaire and millionaire class. And I guess you can deal with that if you're dealing with an honest player in the game, but we're clearly not dealing with somebody who's honest when we're talking about Sam Altman. And we're already seeing the impacts of this race for the advancement of AI, because what we're seeing is yet another massive heist that is taking place in plain sight. And Sam Altman isn't the only one. He just happens to be the subject of this article. But every one of these tech billionaires that's pushing AI is a giant freaking crook. And there's a reason why they're all sitting at the table with the orange moron and forking over millions and millions of dollars, because that's protection money so that they can actually go and do what they want and steal everything that isn't nailed down. And what we've seen, especially with all of the circular investments that have been going on, is that this thing has all the hallmarks of being a giant Ponzi scheme. And when it all comes crashing down, it's going to be you and me that's stuck paying the bill. So what should happen next? Well, the most reasonable thing, the most moderate thing, is that everything should be stopped. If I had my way, all of these billionaire tech bros would be hauled off onto Capitol Hill and be forced to testify under oath, be stripped of every single dime that they have, and depending on how egregious their crimes are, they should be on the business end of a firing squad. So when I say that the most reasonable thing, the most moderate thing, is that the advancement and investment into AI at the levels that they're asking should be paused or stopped, and there should be a minimum amount of financial responsibility that they have to kick into the pot. They are, after all, billionaires. Let them come up with their own money and use that to advance it. That's the most moderate thing. But obviously, there are people who see it differently. There are people who see that the more drastic actions need to be taken when it comes to dealing with these out-of-touch billionaires, especially when it comes to talking about AI. You know, something about these warehouse fires and the Molotov cocktails and drive-by shootings happening at these billionaire CEOs' residences and properties that they own might be related to the fact that there are a lot more people that are waking up to the reality that these people are crooks and they aren't operating in the best interest of everyday average Americans. They're trying to slide, cheat, and steal their way to accumulating even more resources. And guess what? The people have had it. So when we look at all of this, this isn't a discussion about whether Sam Altman is a genius. This isn't a question or discussion about whether he's a massive innovator. This is a question about whether he can be trusted. And based on what's said in the New Yorker, it's clear the guy lies like a rug to the point where he should probably be running for office. And we as a people need to stop every single one of these AI companies dead in their tracks until there's a lot more studying done about what's actually real. And we need to ask ourselves the question, is the benefit that we're supposed to get from all this stuff, does that outweigh the damage that it's going to do to our day-to-day lives and our environments? The simple answer, there's no freaking way that it's worth it. And Sam Altman and all of his other billionaire buddies need to step up to the counter and pay up because the check is due and we're tired of being taken advantage of and being lied to.